The Bible predicts certain events that will take place in the last days, and what is happening now is a fulfillment of those Bible prophecies that were foretold, a number of which were from the prophets of old. We look primarily at events in the Middle East, specifically related to Israel, because we like to say, and it has been said, that Israel is God's prophetic clock. In other words, if you want to know what time it is prophetically and how close we are to the return of the Lord, you just have to look at the nation of Israel. The clock really started ticking in May of 1948 when Israel returned as a nation, which fulfilled a huge host of prophecies that all started to sort of begin. There is a very intriguing prophecy. It's found in the Old Testament book of Ezekiel, and if you've been coming for any length of period of time here, you hear a lot about this prophecy, and there's a reason for that. The fulfillment of Ezekiel 38 is beginning to happen even now before our very eyes. What is Ezekiel 38, for those of you who are not familiar with this prophecy? The prophet Ezekiel, actually in chapters 36 and 37, prophesied that Israel would return to her land. Against all odds, never before in the history of mankind has a nation returned to their land and returned as a people with their language and customs and traditions and religion intact. The nation Israel was the only nation after almost 2,000 years that did that. And it happened in May of 1948. And then in 1967, they captured Jerusalem, their capital, the eternal city, as it's been called. Well, so Ezekiel 36 and 37 are fulfilled. So now what comes after 37? 38. So if 37's been fulfilled, then that means the next thing to be fulfilled is chapter 38. Well, what is chapter 38? Well, once Israel is back in her land, there will be this alliance of nations that will form. And they will attack Israel. And at the helm of this alliance will be two prominent nations, Russia and Iran. There's also a nation more obscure in that list of nations, and it is the nation Libya. Now, in all the years that I've been studying Bible prophecy, this has been an enigma to me because I could never really see where Libya, fit in. They're not really on the scene or in the news, and so when does Libya kind of join hands with Russia and Iran? Oh, last week. It absolutely blew my mind. I go to Joel Rosenberg's website. He has actually a blog site. It's joelrosenbergblogspot.com, I think. We'll look here on the next slide. In fact, we'll go there now. If you're not visiting this website, you're really missing out because he really has his finger on the pulse of what is going on in the Middle East. In fact, as this news broke, he was in Israel with a conference with Pastor Chuck Smith of Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, Pastor Skip Heitzig of Calvary Chapel, Albuquerque, and a host of other leaders and Jewish leaders, both secular Jews and also practicing Jews, and of course Messianic Jews and Christians who support Jews and who are pro-Jew. Well, on Thursday, his blogspot entry had the headline reading, "Putin makes historic trip to Libya and Ezekiel 38 country." This is absolutely historic and strategic and prophetic. Here's what he had to say, quote, "1 week ago today, my colleagues and I were holding our inaugural Epicenter conference in Jerusalem, discussing the prophecies of Ezekiel 38 and 39, which foretell the rise of a dictator in Russia who formed strategic alliances in the last days, not only with Iran, but also with Libya. Today, Russian President Vladimir Putin is actually in Libya, the first Russian leader in history to visit the North African country, creating a strategic alliance, signing numerous agreements, and negotiating a $2.5 billion arms sale to this enormous and historic enemy of Israel. Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi hailed Russian President Vladimir Putin's official visit as historic and strategic during a dinner at the Bab Aziza Palace. This is the first visit by a Russian president to Libya. It is a historic, strategic, and very important visit, Gaddafi said in a speech. The trip will enable increased cooperation given that we are both producers of gas and oil, Gaddafi said. We will work together to defend our interests. Can you say Ezekiel 38? Some 3,000 years prior to this, foretold this, that this is what would take place at the end in the last days? Well, why is Ezekiel 38 such a key prophecy in the Bible related to the last days? Because it's believed that its fulfillment, this Allied attack on Israel, will take place either before, at, or immediately after the rapture. There are even some who believe that it will take place sometime during the 7-year tribulation. Now, by now, you're probably thinking, well, wait a minute. Does the rapture happen before the 7-year tribulation? Yes. Is that what the Bible teaches? Absolutely. Well, that's not what I've been taught. I have been taught by, sincere Bible teachers that the rapture does not take place before the 7-year tribulation, but actually in the middle. Or some even believe it's at the end. Listen, they're wrong. That's not what the Bible teaches. The rapture of the church of Jesus Christ has to happen before the 7-year tribulation period. So, if this Ezekiel 38 prophecy takes place either before or at or after the rapture of the church, and it's already being put in place, and the world leaders, not the least of which now is Libya, is being put in place, and Russia and Iran are already chomping at the bit, and Ahmadinejad in Iran doesn't sleep at night until he wipes Israel off the map, you might say it's pretty close to being fulfilled. Now, I want to caution you, because the tendency is to think, oh my goodness, I better not buy any more green bananas, because they may not ripen by the time, it's time to hear the trumpet sound and be raptured. I want to encourage you to be as ready for the rapture of the church as if it were to happen this afternoon as you would be if it were not for another 10 years from now. Because the problem is some people get so worked up and so excited, and they make no plans, and they think, oh, the Lord's coming back. And then when it doesn't happen when they think it's going to happen, then they begin to sour, and some even fall away from the Lord because he, quote unquote, delays his coming. I think we need to be prudent, and we need to occupy until he comes, as the scriptures declare. Now, let me also say on the other side of that table that this could perhaps be, for some, a wake-up call. This is maybe God's way of saying, I'm going to shake you up and I'm going to wake you up because I am coming soon. And I don't want from my return to catch you off guard and be as a thief in the night. One has posed the question, if you knew the Lord was coming back this afternoon, what would you do before? Oh my goodness, I'd be on the phone with, this family member. I'd, be talking to my neighbor. I would be, doing this. I would be doing that. And they just start listing a whole host of things that they would do before. And then the question is posed, well, why don't you do that now?